Shetland, also known as the Shetland Islands, is the northernlymost point in the United Kingdom and lies between Orkney, the Faroe Islands, and Norway. The islands are home to breathtaking landscapes, with epic coastal hikes and deserted white sand beaches. This historic island was once populated by the Picts, the first known inhabitants, before the Viking conquest occurred. From the 10th to the 15th century, the islands formed part of the Kingdom of Norway until they were annexed under Scottish rule due to a royal dispute involving payment of a dowry. The islands still have a strong connection with their Norse heritage that sets them apart from the rest of Scotland. This connection is in everything from the clothes they wear, the music they play, the food they eat, and even the festivals they celebrate, such as the yearly Uphellier Fire Festival. Shetland is not only a hotspot for sights and culture, but is also home to a host of incredible wildlife, including Shetland ponies, otters, bottlenose dolphins, porpoises, an incredible array of seabirds, and, according to legend, even the mythical Selkie. There once lived a Shetlander who, like many men before him, wished for a wife and children. Unfortunately for him, he was not blessed with either looks, strength, or brains, and as a result found that women rarely paid him any notice. One evening the man took a walk down to the white sand beaches to clear his head and gaze out to the sea, and when he arrived saw something that stopped him in his tracks. People dancing all along the beach, people dancing naked, men and women, each tall and strong and handsome. The island was not a large one, and the man knew most of the islanders by sight, but he didn't recognize a single dancing person. He watched them for a minute, when one of the dancers spotted him. The dancer almost barked, and as quick as the Shetlander had ever seen anyone move, they all began to grab their clothes and ran off and diving into the sea. The Shetlander couldn't believe what he had seen. The sea was almost freezing cold, and he knew it was a trick of the light, but it almost looked like the clothing they had donned made them look like seals. Ignoring what he had seen, the man continued his walk, when he came upon a young woman. She sat there, naked as the day she had come into the world, hugging her knees close to her. "Are you okay?" the Shetlander asked. The woman shook her head. "I can't find my skin." It was a strange way for the woman to word it, to be sure, but the Shetlander thought she had misplaced her clothing. He took off his jacket and covered the woman, then brought her home with him. Back at his house, he found clothes for the woman and fed her mutton and tatty soup, and then let her sleep under a blanket by his hearth. Days passed, and the woman began to talk more and more to him, and they began to form a closeness and affection, the likes of which the Shetlander had only ever dreamt of. But still, the woman spoke of her lost skin. One day, as the woman prepared fish for dinner, the Shetlander went for a walk in the hopes of finding the woman's lost clothing. Tucked under the grass at the edge of the beach, he found a seal skin. It took him a moment to piece it all together, but the Shetlander remembered what he had seen that night. He remembered the tales from his childhood, tales of the Selkies. Selkies were a people that could take human form and mingle with man by undressing from their sealskins, but when the time came, they would put their skins back on and live in the ocean as seals. The Shetlander knew if he gave the skin to the woman, she would return to the sea and leave him forever. He took the skin home with him and hid it under the straw of his roof. Years passed. The pair had married. The woman had given birth to 2 children, whom she was a good mother to. The Shetlander knew that his wife wasn't happy, and she longed for the sea, often spending hours on end watching the seals in the water. But since she had come into his life, he had everything he had ever wanted. What kind of life could his wife have in the freezing Shetland waters anyway? Keeping the skin from her for all these years was as much for her own good as it was for his, or so he told himself. One day the children were playing when one of them ventured onto the roof. There, under the roof, the child found the skin. He Excitedly, they took it to their mother to show what they had found. Suddenly, the woman realized her husband knew what she was, and he had kept her skin from her for all these years. He had kept her happiness from her. She ran from the house with the skin in hand. The child told the Shetlander their mother had ran off, and terrified of losing her, he gave chase. He made it to the sea, but only in time to witness a seal diving from the rocks into the ocean. He and his children never saw the woman again, but every time they took a walk along the beach, they spotted a large seal that seemed to be watching them. Similar tales to this one can be heard from Orkney and from the Faroe Islands, with a statue called Copacanon representing the Selkie wife on the Faroe Islands, and another representing the Selkie at Culzean Castle at the Ayrshire Cliffs on the west coast of mainland Scotland. Maybe next time you see a seal, if it appears to be watching you, know that it might just be, for underneath the skin there could be a person. It could be a Selkie. Like, share and subscribe, and let me know if you were familiar with the Selkie. Join us in our next episode in 2 weeks' time, and until then, may the devil walk behind you. Bye for now.